This is Jonathan St. James, and you're listening to The Truth is Still Straight podcast. All right, folks. It is once again, as you heard, The Truth is Still Straight. And I am Jonathan St. James, along with the extraordinaire co-host, Jim.
Hey, everyone, how you doing?
All right, so let's get started here. Let's get this party. There's a couple of things I want to talk about, and it's just some weird situations. So I was looking online, right? And there used to be early in the YouTube days, there used to be a YouTube personality named like Tickle Me Elmo or something like that. And it's funny that she started off as a high school basketball star, right? And then she went to college. I can't remember what college she went to, but she was a good basketball player, 5'10", had a scholarship. And the interesting thing is that I didn't think she would go to the NBA, but I was like, I thought maybe she'd get a nice education, and do something with her life. So I followed her for a little while, and then, I think she got rid of her her Instagram account, not Instagram, YouTube account. So she got rid of her YouTube account, and then she disappeared for a little while, and then she showed up recently after that, and she moved to Miami. And when she moved to Miami, I'm trying to find a picture of her online. It's very hard because her name is Autumn Spikes, and she her because of the way her name is, when you Google her name, some other crazy business shows up. So anyway, okay. Yeah, so just to make a long story short, she moved to Miami, and then she started stripping.
What?
Yeah. So she became, oh, wait. Before she became a stripper, let me go to what she started doing after that. So here's her. That's her right there. So you see this this thing there, this stat sheet, that's from when she was in college. So she, when she was a college athlete, I'm trying to go back to the page. Okay, so she was a college athlete, 5'10", from somewhere in California, pretty good high school basketball player. I think when I started following her, she may have been in high school. I don't remember how old she was. She used to do like silly, crazy videos, and I don't even know how I even found her, believe it or not. So anyway, let me just get off of that. So she played in some weird basketball league, at least tried to. And in this basketball league, it was like they were scantily clad and, like sexy, kind of like the lingerie league almost. It was something like that. So she played that for a hot minute, and then she started stripping. So then she started stripping. Hold on, I'm trying to get something else on the screen here. So she started stripping, and so that's when I kind of lost track of her. So I lost track of her on YouTube, and then I did a search, and then finally, like I said, let me see what happened to this woman. So it's very interesting that when I took a look at her, This is what I found recently. Let me just click this off here. Okay, so you see what that says? It says Dangote accuses ex-girlfriend Autumn Spikes of trying to extort $5 million from him.
What?
Right.
You
Right.
scammer.
So that's her now. As you see, she had her boobs done and things like that. So here's the deal with that. So apparently she, met this guy from an African, I think he's a billionaire or something like that. Let me see if it says if he's Africa's richest man. So apparently she finagled some type of relationship with this guy. And then I guess he was married or something like that. And so, no. What happened was I read the story briefly, and in the story it was that she exposed him nude online. So he sued her, and now she's suing him back and stuff like that. And then I think it was discovered that he is married. So doing this, I think he's married, and it's a whole big thing. And anyway, I just thought it was interesting how that worked out where someone who had some kind of promise with her life, just for the love of money, just kind of fell so far from intention. Like her intent was to do well in life. And it's just weird how the flash and easy money and fast money just took over her desires, and she became someone that just became sinister. And I know previously before this she was arrested for like some type of altercation, typical young people stuff, getting in trouble, got in a fight or something, and that was the deal. So I thought that was interesting. I wish there was a YouTube video on that, but apparently there isn't one. But that was very interesting to me. So what do you think about that? I mean, it's crazy, right?
Excuse me. Yeah, like first you say she did goofy stuff on YouTube. It turned out innocent enough. She got a scholarship. Did it say that she finished college or anything, or does it say anything?
So you know what? I don't know if she finished. To tell you the truth, I don't know if she finished high school. I mean,
The whole
college.
the whole intent is if you get a free ride to college, you should take advantage of that. I just think that seeing the illusions that are out there, it's like you're not really paying for college, you're just paying for necessities and stuff like that. Like, what do you really need? How much do you really need to survive at that point? Not when you're out of college, but at that point. So, you just pay it slowly, build yourself up, just do the 4 years of college. You're able to do those things after you finish college, whatever you want to do. And you have a small insurance policy to fall back on. That's the problem with people today. They know we don't have an insurance policy. They put all their eggs in one basket on hustling and stuff like that, and think that they're gonna be like found, or someone is just gonna take them in, or accept all their stuff, and everything's gonna be all hunky dory. But it's just crazy the way that things spiraled out for her. It just spiraled. Like,
Yeah, certainly. It's just weird how all of these things happen, and all of the motivation by money,
that's it.
motivated by
Yes.
money. And really, this is where we're at. But I know this guy was paying her like a lot of money. I think like 22. So let me see if this story's there. I read it earlier. I know he was paying her something. He paid her like a $15,000 up front, like something like that. And then he was paying her like I think 2,500 a month or something crazy. He was paying her some kind of money.
And she can't do nothing with that. It's
Yeah,
not like you ain't working much. Like, we can't do nothing with that.
yeah,
That's the
that's what I
problem.
say. That's what I
That's the
say.
problem with people. Yeah, the money that she was probably getting, she had to keep that illusion up, and keeping up illusions costs a lot of money. She had to reinvest in the illusion.
Yeah, it's just interesting, but it's interesting how she found her way to this guy. You know what I mean? Like,
She found out about it and was determined to get there.
but that's scary because that's really
Yes.
somebody looking looking to take advantage. I mean, I don't absolve him of anything that he's done, but like to think it's incredible how she just found her way to him.
Mm-hmm. A determined person. I've always said this: you cannot stop a determined person. You can put up roadblocks. You can put up anything. You know, a determined person will find a way around it and to try to reach their goal. This is why I don't believe that for certain situations that that there is only one way of doing. There's not one way of doing things. It's multiple ways. It's just how you go about it.
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly. I was trying to look at the image, but it won't let me just look at the image because there's an image here of her. Well, you know what? Let me do it this way then. Let me try to do
And
it.
I'm sure those implants cost her money too. So I guess she still got to upkeep those.
So
It's
yeah, let me
upkeeping
just
implants.
I didn't this looks a little sloppy. I didn't want to really show it like this, but so that's her over there. So you see right there, that's her like a few years after she left college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then wait a minute, there's some pictures down here. Let's see what else. So this looks like it's more recent because you see how huge her breasts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that is more recent.
What's the name again?
Autumn Spikes. And that's her. She just, you could tell she did things to her face because she looks nothing like her youth days. So she's definitely had some type of, I don't know, both. I don't know what she had to done to her face, but it definitely doesn't look how she used to look. And then they don't even have early photos of her. They just have all the recent ones. And then she got
All the recent ones.
you can see she got a little fat there,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting to me. I guess he likes them thick because she used to be thin. She was very thin.
Right.
Well, not very thin, but she was slim in the beginning. Um, but even then, I think when she became a stripper, she had some implants done, and I don't know what that is. That's just over the top. But I guess if somebody's paying, why not, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But
So
what I've learned about implants is not about the initial payment, it's about upkeep.
yeah, that's true too. That is certainly true. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that story. I just
Mm-hmm.
thought that was just interesting in
It
itself.
is. It's interesting how they just find these men. It's very interesting. I didn't even know who this guy is until just now. It is interesting. It's like a predator type thing. Research your subject, find out about your subject, research him, and try to find your way to him.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So what else are we talking about here? Oh yeah, let me get this thing up on the screen if I could find it here. Hold on one second here. I wanted to talk about we were supposed to be talking about Kevin Samuels a while ago. So I'm gonna kind of get that discussion going. If I can get it on this screen over here, let's see, how do I do this? It's very, full screen. Got to get it in the full screen mode, or it's going to look a little ridiculous when I play it. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that. So let's go to that. All right. There it is. Kevin Samuels. Da-da-da. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to talk about him because, there's a lot of things going on. The whole thing with the DJ Envy and Angela Yee, they was talking some crap about him. So I wanted to kind of, really just have a formal discussion about him because, we've talked about him in the past and things like that. So I wanted to, for those people who may know who he is and saw brief clips of him, I wanted to sort of get a conversation about him. So basically, in his discussions, you have the competition. So this is the latest dude. You have Tommy Sotomayor, who is kind of like, I would say, an original sort of Kevin Samuels type, but not as sophisticated in his speech. He's very vulgar. this guy Tommy Sotomayor. I used to listen to him because he didn't only talk about relationships; he talked about everything, breaking news. And he was actually one of the original people to actually interview Kwame Brown. So with all this stuff going on with Kwame Brown and all these people, he actually interviewed him some time ago, and they talked about things and stuff like that. So also you have these people, Kendra G and Cynthia G.
Now, Kendra G, I know she got roasted by Jim Jones on her podcast.
Yes.
A little ago. So she and Cynthia G, I never heard of, but I'm sure.
Cynthia G is another person that sort of took clips of Kevin Samuels and sort of tried to drag him through the dirt about saying that he's a misogynist and things like that. Kendra G tried to do the same. So the funny thing with Kendra G is she was very critical of Kevin Samuels, talking about how you telling people about relationships and you're twice divorced. So it's funny that a lot of times when people want to discredit Kevin Samuels, they talk about things like, well, who are you to give advice? But who is anyone to give advice?
Correct.
You have people, you have The Real, you have The View. Does anybody know where these people got their credentials from? Where did Whoopi go? First of all, Whoopi Goldberg is a high school dropout. So she gives lots of advice. She'll give you lots of political, talks about current events and stuff like that. So what makes Whoopi Goldberg more qualified to give anyone advice than anyone else in the world? It's just what happens. Everybody has an opinion. You can agree with it. You can disagree with it. There are people who don't have credentials, but they have knowledge and they can share the knowledge that they have. And you can decide and decipher whether or not it's legitimate or valid. That's how I feel. I don't have a problem with not unqualified people giving advice as long as they kind of know what they're talking about. And that's how I see it. What do you think?
I believe I found this concept of people don't like the message, they just love the messenger. And I think that people fall for certain messages when it comes from a certain type of messenger. So it either be status, like money, or looks based. They fall prey to the message coming from them. So that's why I said when people don't like them, don't want to hear the message, they just want to watch the messenger. And unfortunately, that's the type of society we live in. When you fall for a certain messenger, and it does not make a one person above another person when it comes to advice or things like that. I think if you come from a place of humility and realize that the circumstances that you were in to be successful, or even if you were just lucky, I think that should be really displayed upon to people and say that, you know what, I count my blessings and things like that. I can always help you, but it might not always be for you. But if you could customize it, some advice is just not for general, but if you customize it and fit it, to where it can be, you can use it as a stepping stone, because people want the message to be one size fits all, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with that. So one of the arguments that people want to say about him to discredit him is call him gay. So as you see, He has these photos here of him, and this is what they tend to post, saying, look at him. This isn't a real man. He hates women. He's gay. And, so they disparage him through sex, try to disparage him through sexuality, which I'm like, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but did you want to say something? It sounded like you had something to add to that.
That is the grade school mentality when you have really nothing to say about his message. You divert attention away from the message he's giving, and you put it upon the subject of him just smiling in a photo or the way he dresses and stuff like that. You don't know the man, you just see what you read, just what you see on TV. Most guys in the 80s look like they could have been gay. Like, come on now. I mean, these women are really just reaching to try and disparage a message and then describe what does gay have to be with him delivering his message? What does that really have to what does that have to be do anything with that?
Yeah, sure.
Because these women now watches RuPaul Drag Race. They watch freaking Pose. They watch those things along with gay men, and they wear makeup like them. So I don't understand what's the point in that? They don't explain anything. They don't explain the point. They just say that he's gay. Why? Why do you use this? Why does it relate to his message? They're just throwing out stuff and see what sticks. That method is like so tired and trope. I really don't like it.
I agree with that, certainly. So this is the essence of Kevin Samuels. So basically, when ladies want to call on talking about their high value man or man that they want to get, he asks them these things: height, weight, dress size, and their age. I didn't put that on there, unfortunately. But as you see, you have the dress sizes. So it says US dress sizes: small 2 to 4, medium 6 to 8, large 10 to 12. So then up there is the obese, healthy weight, overweight, obese class 1, obese class 2, and obese class 3. So obese is just slightly over your, over your weight size for your height. But the funny thing is, people, and I was cracking up because a lot of women tend to argue it's Afrocentric measurements, and they try to say, well, white people and black people are their size differently. But I'm like, that's not true. I know plenty of people who wear this, they wear the same sizes. So I don't know where that comes in. It's definitely, of course, everything is that we look at in American society tends to be Eurocentric. Everything we look at. But just because something is based on Eurocentric standards, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Depending on the issue. Health, the only thing that I would say is different health factors, like illnesses and things like that. They affect different classes of people differently, clearly. So anyway, people use this argument, but these are legitimate arguments for standards, and I think that's the issue there, because he went and had a discussion with this woman here. And this whole discussion with this lady, she was I think a pet groomer.
Yeah, she had her own business, yes.
And so he was trying to, and this is actually going to be, I won't talk too much about this because I think this is going to be the topic of discussion for today. But the end of this conversation was, he explained to the woman, he said, you're an average woman and there's nothing wrong with being average. And he said that you should look for average man. Is that wrong? Was he wrong to say that?
No, right. No. And unfortunately, people when certain group demographics hear that, they consider that settling, which is, you're not really settling. But all right, listen, there's a phrase I've learned, 2 phrases, and this is why they have different weight classes. Your arms are too short to box with God, and play within your class. This is why boxing has different weight classes when you fight them. You think a lightweight could fight a heavyweight? Can you think, and that's the point. Don't try to go above your class too much if you're not prepared. And he says that, the high value man may not be the ones looking for you, basically. And the average man is looking for her. Why? What's wrong with going to the average man? Because they are looking for her. They will, if she has certain requirements or preferences, they might be able to fulfill those in a high value man. A high value man may instantly do it, but they're not really.
I do know. She claimed that the average guys, when she met them, because she said, "Oh, I was dating down." And she was saying when she meets these average guys that are not as successful as her, that they wanted to get into her business. Like, oh, let me help you with your business and get involved in that. And she was like, she wasn't interested in that. So I know that was one of the complaints that she had, but we'll talk about that topic into the relationship. I don't want to get too heavily into that. So, of course, he does the rating. So these are some of the women that he talks about: eights, nines, and tens. I think Rihanna he has like as a 10, and then he has Beyonce as an 8 and Kelly Rowland as a 9. And I think this is how they are here. Is under Beyonce is Dorothy Dandridge, and then of course that's Halle Berry. Under Kelly Rowland, that is Diane Carroll. So he uses that, and then people say, "Oh, you use a colorism argument," but he's like, "No, I don't,
No, I
because
don't.
Kelly Rowland is darker than Beyonce, and I have her
He's treated.
higher as I have her higher than Beyonce. So clearly, if you see Diane Carroll is somewhat darker, and he uses other people, I think like Jane Kennedy. I think her name is Jane Kennedy, and what's her name? I can't remember what her name is. Who was the lady in Jackie Brown? Do you remember what her name is?
Pam Grier?
Pam Grier, yeah, yeah, Pam Grier. I don't know why I forgot that. Oh my goodness.
I'm about to say.
Yeah, Pam Grier. I love Pam Grier. I've watched a lot of her movies back her Black exploitation. Let me tell you, she's I think she's definitely appreciated as an actress in terms of her contribution, especially during the Black exploitation era was a little on the corny side the way they made the movies, but sometimes you have to look at the performance within the movie. And Pam Grier did. She's a great. I mean, I can appreciate her more later in life because she took on some more serious roles later in life. But she's an amazing actress. Forget about her beauty and everything. I don't know too much about Dorothy Dandridge other than that Halle Berry played her in the movie. Diane Carroll, I do know. She played in one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, is Claudine.
Yes.
That's the hood anthem, Claudine, because for those of you from the hood, you know how the welfare system used to work back in the day. You couldn't have a man in the house, you couldn't have TVs, and when the welfare services used to come by, they used to have to hide your riches. So that was my favorite movie. And Diane Carroll is certainly a beautiful woman. Certainly, I'm not sure of Rihanna at 10, but it is what it is. Kelly Rowland, definitely my 10 would be probably Halle Berry, in her prime years, in her younger years. I mean, she's still beautiful, but if we're talking about like a 10, I would somebody like that, I can't think of too many people off the top of my head, but Diane Carroll definitely is up there. Very beautiful. Yeah. So then he talks about this high value man. So what is that? So basically, high value man is someone who is making a certain amount of money, is respected by his peers, and stuff like that, and is in his career, and he tends to be an older person. So you have over here, we're talking about average men and women, as everyone else. There's everybody under this high value man and this high value woman, I guess. So then he talks about ratings here. So what would you rate yourself? And we talked about for the ladies, that he gave him that rating. He doesn't, I don't, we call him rating men, but a lot of women have this problem. Oh, that's sexist, you're rating, but he is quick to remind them, you do the same thing. You're rating men, you're rating them by their income, by where they live, their careers, their education. So he's basically saying you don't realize it, but you're rating men as well. No, if you have children or not, if you've ever been married, stuff like that. So, that's always the argument. And then, of course, they talk about him not having money. So this is according to exactnetworth.com of course, this is not necessarily written in stone, but exactnetworth.com has estimated him to be worth about 3 million. And then he is estimated to receive $5,000 a month on YouTube. Now that fluctuates, of course. But so that's kind of what I want to talk about. So they attack him because I think what it is that they're just a little on the jealous side because it's his time. So, when it's your time, people tend to not like it, especially when you're taking away from their success. It's very rare where you have somebody that comes in and they're doing something that takes away from the attention that you get, and you're like, oh, that's fair, or whatever. So basically what's happening with that is you just have people that are very disappointed that they can't be in that position anymore, or they were never were in that position, and then it's now all of a sudden it's unfair because they can't live or reside in that popular place anymore. Like Tommy Sotomayor. Tommy Sotomayor was a guy, I don't know how many people subscribed to him because he was getting banned left and right. So he had to keep creating different channels. So I don't know in his heyday how many people supported him, but he was making money. He was, Kevin Samuels, not as fine tuned. He was a little on the ratchet side, cursing, outright just being disrespectful to people. Forget about, they say Kevin Samuels is disrespectful to people. No, Kevin Samuels can become impatient after some point, but that's usually people trying him, and then he just had enough of it and kind of goes off on them. So yeah. All right, folks. So enough of that display. That was fun while it lasted. So I'm going to get into the relationship portion of the Truth is Still Straight podcast. Today's topic is, what do we say today's topic is, Jim? Did you remember?
Why relationships end?
No, why they don't work.
Why
relationships don't work.
Work.
Yes. And I'm glad we had this conversation about Kevin Samuels, because some of it is within that discussion that he has with a lot of people who call in. So this is an interesting place to be, because we have a lot to talk about. And so you'll hear a lot of people go on relationship shows and they're like, I can't find a man, I can't find a good woman, and things like that. But here's the thing. So again, everything works on how you look and how you meet. So you meet a woman, you meet a man. Now, what are you looking for when you meet these people? And that's the thing. So first of all, let's start from the beginning. So here's the disconnect, and I'll start off here, Jim, and then you can give your thoughts on that. So first of all, let's say, it's funny because we live in a huge world of oxymorons, and why I say that is because what's the biggest thing in the world right now, bigger than anything? Can you guess what's the biggest thing in the world that we all share? Every person that has some type of technology, what do we all share in common throughout the world? People who have technology.
Internet.
Okay, but what do we do on the internet?
Post stuff, research.
And that's called what?
Surfing, texting. Surfing.
No, what's the name of the entity that we are on? Facebook, Instagram.
Facebook. Oh, that's social media.
Social media. Okay, so that's the hilarious part. Social media. And why I say that to oxymoron is because although we call that social media, there's really no socializing done on social media. I mean, it's done, but it's not done efficiently. So basically what people are doing now, they're using social media mostly for clout. A lot of the younger people and people who are enterprising are using social media for clout, but they're not using social media for socializing. So here's the thing. If everybody's on social media, think about it. This is no exaggeration. There are people that I know on social media that I've actually seen in person, like literally like sitting across from me. And the person, because we've known each other via social media, however that happened, did not say hello, did not say, hey, hi, how you doing? And it's not like, for example, we've never had interactions on social media. We've talked lots of times, but the problem with social media, people don't really want to, there's, 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 there's agendas that people have on social media, whether it's dating, whether it's selling products, whether it's becoming an influencer, whatever the situation is. So people have agendas where they go on there, but so being social and socializing is not one of them. So that's the first and foremost. Will you agree with that, Jim?
Definitely.
Okay. So that's the main issue here. Is the reason why I bring up social media being an oxymoron is because there's no place for people to socialize. There isn't. If you go on the subway, Jim, 9 out of 10 times, what will you see men and women doing on a subway train?
Looking at their phones or avoiding homeless people.
Okay, let's scratch the avoiding homeless people part, but certainly on their phones. Absolutely. So you'll have people on their phones, whether they're on Facebook, watching videos, listening to music, reading a book, listening to a book. They're doing something on their phones. So first and foremost, the people of today, modern day people, are not equipped to socialize, one, with members of the same sex and members of the opposite sex. So I'll go back to the old story of when I was walking down the street and a beautiful woman came up to me and I told her I wasn't going to buy her cologne. And she was dumbfounded that I knew she was selling cologne. And she said, "How do you know I'm selling cologne?" Because I said, "I'm looking at you and you're an attractive young woman. And I know for a fact that an attractive young woman is not going to go to someone when they're not trying to get something out of that person." And so she was dumbfounded. And yeah, she was trying to sell cologne. That's what they used to do back in the day. They had the knockoff colognes. And then what they would do is they would have the young women go up to these men and try to sell these colognes. I think they were like 3 for $20, or I don't remember how much they were back then. But anyway, they would try to hustle these guys because that's what they did. You know, you saw a attractive young lady, "Oh, we ain't buying these colognes," and you're like, "Oh yeah, sure." You know, who wants to say no to a beautiful woman? It's very hard. So she was very surprised, but I knew this. You know, I live in New York. There's millions of women, and women, you know, it's funny when people say, "Oh, I'm not like that." A lot of people are the same. We're all similar to someone else. It's just what category do you fall in? That's really the truth. We all fall into a social category. It's just what category do you fall in? So you see women a lot, and it's weird. Is people are uncomfortable. First of all, people, you know, in society, in as I can't speak everywhere, but in New York, you'll have people not go up to you. They'll rather talk to someone who doesn't know directions before they come to you.
And that's why I meant with the whole messenger thing. It's not the message, it's who's giving it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about that all the time. And you know, I don't take things personally because I'm like, you know what? That's you. If you that's how you want to live your life, more power to you. But one thing that I've noticed is women are very selective the way that they interact generally with men. So it's very interesting. Like if a woman, and it doesn't matter what race it is, I've had this happen to me quite often that when a woman needs directions and they're trying to get around, they'll bypass me every single time. I've never had a woman go up to me before a white man. They'll go up to a white man and be like, "Oh, could you tell me where?" And the guy be like, "I don't know." And then before they would even come to, they'll leave before they'll ask me. Mind you, I'm a New York City master. Listen, you need to get around in New York City. I can tell you how to get there. You need to get on the subway. I can tell you even better how to get around on the subway. I'm probably, other than Jim on the show with me today, I'm one of the best people in the New York City metropolitan area that can get you on the subway and around town. So it's interesting that no matter what knowledge I may have, women will not come up to me and ask for directions at all. And I've lived in New York pretty much all of my life. So that's a long time. And I've been taking the subways on my own since I was 13 years old, I think. I've been riding the subways by myself. So that's a pretty long time. That's decades of subway. And of course, I worked within the subway system, the MTA, for some years. So I'm very knowledgeable of the system, and I kind of like the subways, not as much as Jim and his peeps do, but I like it. So anyway, you have that situation. So the social structure is very off in society. Men and women do not really communicate on a general basis unless there's a need to communicate. And then when you go into the different cultures, forget it. I have very little, and it's weird. I always talk about this, the racial components of men and women. I literally have very minimum white female friends. I do. They generally don't want to be friends with people. So unless they're rebellious to their culture, they don't want to be friends outside of their race. I don't know why that is. I can't speak for that. I can't really give you and it's within all cultures. Like I don't have any Indian friends. I don't have any. I have some white male friends. I have a lot of Black and Hispanic friends. I definitely, that's the majority of my friends. They're all Black and Hispanic. I have one Asian woman friend. Her name is Sue. And then I have maybe 3 white women friends that I've known since high school. And that is, well, I'll say 2 because that's, I have a friend named Heather. She lives up there in the Syracuse area. And then Erin is another friend. But more so, Erin and I, we haven't been as cool as, as friends over the years. But Heather, we've been very, very cool. And the funny thing with the backstory with that was, I know, so I'm, quite older than the average person that's on social media. But to make long story short, I know Heather in high school, and hopefully she never listens to this, but they were trying to hook Heather up with me in high school. So, of course, I'm from New York City. They're from Herkimer, New York, which is up by Syracuse. So I'll never forget. We went to Buffalo. So the funny thing is they had this FHA. If anybody knows, it's not for homes. It is technically for homes. The FHA stands for Future Homemakers of America. Now, I'm not gonna say I wasn't chauvinistic. I like, my teacher was like, "Oh, you should join FHA." I was like, FHA, Future Homemakers of America, because I knew what it was. I was like, hell no, I'm not joining that. That's not for men. So she said, she did me dirty. She was like, listen, if you want to meet a girl, that's the place to be. Future Homemakers, there's going to be a lot of girls there. I'm like, oh, what? Oh, sign me up. I told her, sign me up. So, so I'd signed up and we had this trip to Herkimer. And so we were up there, and of course, no social media back then, but hip hop was, coming into its own. We were just out of the 80s, and this is the 90s. So now hip hop is pretty much everywhere. Rap and hip hop is everywhere. So when we were in Buffalo, and they heard we were from New York, and there weren't a lot of Black people up there. The majority of the people were from outer. And it's funny, New York is not known about its segregation, but New York State is really segregated. I mean, now it isn't as segregated, but back in the day, it was very segregated. So a lot of people had never seen Black people before. So they were like, "Oh, what's up? Hey, how you doing?" I mean, they treated us like celebrities. We had some type of program book we walked around with. We had kids coming up to us asking us to sign their books, and I was signing autographs. You would have thought I was like playing basketball or some a rap artist or something like that. And the funny thing is people followed us, kids followed us around, and then I met these girls. Most of the guys from my school, they knew them because they went the year before. This was my first year going. I would never got involved in that. So we met. I met Heather, Erin, and there was another girl. I can't remember her name. Oh man, it was 3 of them. But anyway, so they hung out with us because there was this kid in my school. He was a Middle Eastern dude. His name was Tag Aziz. And Aaron liked him. Aaron really was like, loved him. He liked her, but he was a high school kid. He wasn't really trying to hook up with her or whatever. So anyway, they started hanging out with us, and they wanted to do something. I don't, I guess they wanted to have sex. I don't know what it was they really had going on there, but I wasn't trying to. They wanted to hook me up with Heather, and I wasn't looking for that. And so Heather, she was angry, like she was mad at me. I don't like I did something because I don't know what it was, what was going on, but there was some real tension between us where she was really upset with me. So it didn't work out. The hookup didn't work out. I don't know if because Tag, I don't know if he was sleeping in my room because I know I was in with this kid named, I think his name was Daryl Washington or something like that. So anyway, that didn't work out. And then the next day we had the party. So that was a funny thing. I don't know why I'm going. I just felt led to tell this story. So we had the party the next night, like a little disco, whatever. So we were up in there, and it was the funniest thing ever because there were girls. So let's say a song was on, there was these little white girls doing the one dance for like the whole song. So like if they did the Running Man, they would do the Running Man for like the whole, and that's tired. You ever did the Running Man? That's very tired. Or the Roger Rabbit. They were doing like for 3 minutes straight the Running Man, one dance. And then if the other one knew like whatever dance they knew how to do, they did it for the whole song. I'm like, that's not quite how dancing works. But I was like, okay. So anyway, we had these kids, they were telling us, oh, talk slang because they didn't really know slang. So we were telling them the latest slang words and stuff like that. And it was interesting. So anyway, I met this girl. Her name was Shelly. And yeah, Shelly was very nice looking. She was tall, white, of course. Her last name, I won't say her last name just in case she ever listens to this show, but she lived up in the similar area up by there. You know what? I think she lived in Herkimer. She may have lived in Herkimer. I think they lived like in Beaver Falls. I think that's where they lived at, Beaver Falls. She lived in Herkimer. So I think they lived in Beaver Falls, which is still close by. So anyway, I was like, wow. And, these dudes, they were really disparaging Shelly. They were like, oh, she's for the streets, But I'm like, she looked beautiful. I'm not going to listen to these guys because, guys say whatever they want to say. You never know if they're telling the truth or not. So anyway, I was like, okay, I'm Mr. Popular and I'm just going to shoot my shot and say what's up to her. So I went over her, and this is actually the first time I've ever, spoke to a white girl in a romantic way. I've never in my whole life up to that point. Not that I was that old, but So anyway, I went up to her and asked her to dance. She was like, nah, that's okay. And she was with a friend. So I was like, wasn't interested in her friend, but I was like, let me ask the friend too, so I don't seem rude. So I asked her and the friend. It was like, nah. So then I asked her again. And then finally, it was like, I think the last song of the night, and it was Take My Breath Away, the from Top Gun, that song. I forget what the name, Berlin, I think is the name of the group. So anyway, I finally said, listen, come on, man, this is the last song. Could you please? So she was like, okay, I'll dance with you. So we were dancing, and this was like a very memorable moment to me. And then I'm looking to her eyes, and I was like, you're very beautiful. And she was like, oh, you're very handsome. I was like, oh, I think I almost fainted on the dance floor because women don't talk, girls don't talk like that really. So I remember we kind of talked after that, and I thought it was gonna work out, because she liked me and I liked her, and I gave her my phone number, and she gave me her phone number. Yeah, that didn't work out, and it didn't work out because of this thing called racism. You know how that is. So basically what happened, she had this racist father, a stepfather, and yeah, he really got in the way of all of that. And basically he would intercept my letters. He would intercept the phone call. So we would send letters back and forth. She would send letters to me, and I would send letters to her. And yeah, no, it wasn't going to work out because he was against it. So long, I don't even know how we got to that, but that we socialized. So there was, even though there was a segregation going on, there was a social structure that we had between men and boys and girls, and that's what we did back then. There was a different standard for living, but it doesn't really exist that way anymore. Everything is so adversarial, you know what I mean? So it started changing from there. The 90s, I think, really started changing the way people met. In the 80s, there was the internet started coming around in the 90s, and that really started changing things. But yeah, what happened was in the 90s, the world became even more sexualized. So in the 80s, you like people, the way that it worked is like, hey, how you doing? You want to go out? If the girl had a boyfriend, oh, I have a boyfriend, okay. If she didn't, it was like, okay, I'll give you a try. And that was usually how it worked. I mean, not to say every girl did that, but the majority of the girls you met back in the 80s, late 80s till like early 90s, if they had a boyfriend, then they didn't mess with you for the most part. But if you was single and she was single, they would give you a try. So the 90s came around, the internet changed everything. Internet dating, chat rooms, and just went downhill from there. The original social media was chat rooms. So that's what you had there. You had the chat rooms, and that pretty much killed everything. And yeah, so what do you think about that? Am I wrong? Was talking about the way society has changed the social culture between men and women. I mean, did you see that change at all? What did you see growing up yourself? Did you notice a change throughout the years?
I can't tell you for sure. In the 80s, I was just a
Well, in the
kid.
90s. I
Okay.
mean, did you see a
In the
change in the
90s,
90s?
I sort of did, but I just think that the reach of other people just became more dynamic. So for me in the 90s growing up, most girls fell for, a certain type of guy, especially at school, popular guy, things like that. And, most of the guys who stayed on I won't say on the sidelines, but did their own thing, wasn't really too involved. It was a fascination, but it was not something that they would really like push themselves upon. I was one of the guys that probably few girls had a fascination with, but probably didn't really bother with. So for me, it was like at the time, like I won't say I wasn't interested in girls, but I was interested in doing other things. I wasn't really in chat rooms. I was mostly the explorer type. I was the original male Dora,
Mm-hmm.
in high school. So I mostly tried to explore, see New York City before I see the world because I haven't, I was one of those people who barely left their four corners. So for me, it was a different type of thing. If a girl said they like me, my reaction was why? It was just, I questioned every damn thing
Right.
as when I was younger. But in terms of observations from other people, yes. So with that, the you it wasn't like if you like them, if they liked you, or if you didn't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, it became mostly like preferences. Says, oh, you like this, I like this, you like this, we might click. So they might try and get together based on their likes and likes or dislike of something, and then they'll probably take it from there, see if they're compatible. Then it became like the different chat rooms segregated what um the criteria for certain things. And the chat rooms, they thought that they were pinpointing about what they want in a person, but it wasn't. You're just taking one aspect of what you like and think you could expand upon it, and that type of thing really spiraled downhill because just because we both of us like hip hop doesn't mean we like anything else in common. But those were the chat rooms that they were geared for, was certain type of demographic. And yes, it did spiral out of control from there because people could pretend to like it. People could, their true intentions were never known because they never really spoke to them face to face. It was just through a computer. And like I always said, say you can be a big shot behind a keyboard. When it comes face to face, you ain't anything. So that really did help that type of mentality spiral out of control. Yes. So based upon those observations, yes, it really changed the dynamic of interaction or lack thereof with people.
Yeah, so I know it sounds weird that we go through all this history, and what does that have to do with now? So the point that I'm just making is with social media, all of these personal interactions that people had have just been diluted over the years. And I definitely would say a change has with the onset of the internet and chat rooms and social media, it sort of desensitized us to the essence of relationships and what is it that you really want. Another big thing, so that's really what I want to say. So we talked about the socializing. There's just a lack of social structure between boys and girls, men and women. We don't socialize the way that we used to. Everything is computerized and likes and friend requests. And I talked about in a previous episode, maybe last week or the week before, we talked about someone saying, "Oh, hey, what's up? I like you. I like to take you out. What's your Snap or what's your IG account? Not your phone number." It's just crazy. And there's instant access to a cell phone, but someone feels more comfortable socializing through Instagram, which is beyond me. And that's weird because the funny thing is most of my modern day friends that I meet now, we only communicate through social media, despite the fact that I do have cell phone numbers. So it's weird that that's the way. So my people that I know that are in their 20s, I would say people my age tend to still communicate through text message and phone calls. I mean, even text messages, has sort of diluted socializing, but it's made it convenient when you can't talk on the phone, which is really what it is. But the problem is people use text messages in place of phone calls. And that has really ruined the relationship between people in general, more specifically between men and women. It's just, and then of course, text messages and words are interpretational. What might mean something to me may not mean the same to the next person. They may take it more severe. They may take it less severe. It may bring us closer. It may bring us further apart. And it's just, it depends on the person, because what happens a lot of times, people don't seek clarity. So if I say something and I offend you, or you appear to be offended, you don't respond for clarity. You respond for being offended. And then it just turns into a conflict and it just gets way worse. And before you know it, people are not speaking and, it just gets out of hand. I mean, do you see that at all, Jim?
Yes, the art of conversation is completely lost this generation. The true art of conversation is completely lost. The second part is that with no conversation, you don't enunciate your words, you don't pronounce words, you don't spell correctly. So, and I find this funny, in the advent of the internet where you could go online to type how to spell a word, people still don't know how to spell a word, but you could go to Google for something else.
Correct.
It's just crazy. But yes, the art of conversation is lost. It's totally lost on the later generations. They don't know how to speak to people. They just talk general terms, slang, stuff like that they're used to, and they expect you to adapt. But that's why they keep running in the same circles, because they don't know how to adapt. They don't know how to switch up their conversation. They don't know how to talk in words that in conversations that make them feel uncomfortable, or hearing a different opinion, or hearing a different experience. People are looking for the same generalization all the time, and unfortunately, that the true art of conversation is lost. You really don't know how to think. You don't know how to process information properly. Most people are communicating like this or with this, never with this.
Right.
It's just splurting things out there and see what comes back at you. And then you become, like you say, adversarial, competitive, combative, just ready for an argument. when it's not really that serious.
Right, I agree. And like you said, people often listen to anticipate their response and not to hear and clarify and understand. It's just very weird how that happened. And it happens pretty much often, often. And I don't want to start pointing fingers at who's responsible for what, but you can figure it out if you use your discernment. You can figure out how this is going, how it's going down. But a lot of times there's a disconnect in communication because people in general tend to just want to argue. They just want to argue their thoughts, their opinions. They don't care what the other person is saying. But the one thing that I've learned to do over the years, especially now, is let people say what they have to say. And if you disagree with them, give them a chance. You got to give people a chance to have their say. Got to ask questions to understand. You got to come to an agreement that this person feels the way that they feel, even if that wasn't your intention to make them feel that way. You got to let them express how they felt about what you said, and then clarify your meanings to your words, and either you'll come to an agreement, or you just move on from there. Sorry that you got that impression from me. I apologize that if I said anything wrong or responded in a way that upset you, but here's where I'm going with this. You have something to say?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because most of the people I converse with are not looking for a response. They're just looking for vent. And I just tell them, if you want to vent, get a pet. I'm not here for that. I am a human being that processes information and can speak back properly. Most people, to me, when I converse with them, are not looking for a response. They're just looking for a personal vent and affirmation. I can't
Yeah.
provide that for you.
Well, I'm not talking about
Right.
saying something to me and I respond. I'm just talking about in terms of something that appears to be a conflict. So when
Right.
you have a conflict with someone, a disagreement, or they disagree or got triggered, instead of asking what you mean by that, they'll just be offended, and then it just causes a conflict, and then you try to explain stuff and they're not willing to listen to
Right.
what you have to say. But I'm learning to circumvent those things when people are willing to talk, because if you have someone that's willing to talk, not always, because if someone is having a discussion solely with emotion and not willing to hear what you have to say, is the conversation is never going to work. And I've had that. I've had where nothing that you can say, because the person has so much emotion and feelings in their responses, in their disagreement, that nothing will legitimize anything that you have to say. And that's a whole different situation entirely.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that was one of the things that I wanted to discuss. It's just the social structure between men and women is just off. And to think that we hear people getting offended by the mere notion that a woman should smile at a man. It's just weird how you could have there was a discussion with Kevin Samuels where the woman's like, I'm not smiling at a guy. For what reason? Well, let's see. Here's the thing: when people want things in life, they know how to be very friendly. If you had a flat tire and you needed help having your tire changed, I'm pretty sure you're going to be very polite to the guy to ask you if you need help.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the whole story with the woman that was selling me the cologne. I was like, yeah, you were going to be very nice to me to sell me cologne, but if you didn't have cologne to sell, you would never spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that's where the social disorder is just messed up. A lot of times, often you have, I can't really put the guys on this one for the most part. Maybe there's some arguments for it, but a lot of times women, if they have no use for a man, they won't get to know them at all. If I can't do something for a woman, if I have no use to a woman, they have nothing to say at all.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you get a good morning. Around a lot of women, if you get a good morning from that woman, oh, you're very lucky. But it doesn't happen very often. It's just weird. If a woman has no use for you, they really have no use for you. Good morning, being friendly. I'm not saying necessarily you got to be friends with everyone, but you can be friendly.
Always, yes.
It's just very bizarre how that happens. And then people want to know why they can't find someone. Well, you can't meet someone. How it works is you can't just say, look at the just one specific kind of person and think that's where your relationship is going to go with the one person that you want to be with, that everyone wants to be in. And that's really what
Correct.
it boils down to. And that's the next topic, is really the mindset of the meeting, right? Who do you want to be with and why do you want to be with that person? And that's another issue too, because you have a lot of these women that they like the same kind of guy. They want there was, and I can't for a certain to say where this study comes from, but all these guys, they have these surveys where they say the survey was like 10 to 20% of the men are having sex with 80% of the women in this
I
in this
believe that.
country.
I believe that.
So in a matter like that, you don't see a problem with that. And it's funny, no matter how many times they discuss that on these shows, women don't take heed to what that even means. It's like, wow. So most likely, if I'm a single woman, I'm going to be dealing with the guy that's probably dealing with someone else.
Correct, but they want monogamy from that same guy.
Right, exactly. And that's the issue. It's yeah, it doesn't quite work out like that. So it's yeah, it's very problematic.
There's a thing I always used to say. Women like to be in exceptions. Women throws exceptions. They don't throw out the general rule. So for me, for women, I always say this: only way to becoming that exception, you become a general statistic. You'll become a general statistic on the way to, and what I mean by general statistic, single mother. I mean, if you had sex with the same guy or dealing with the same guy, things like that. And they don't realize it. They're just so focused on the end. They don't know that their journey is full of crap to reach that ending. And sometimes the pleasure is a journey itself, but it's lost upon them. And I always say this, and this is why I always see on Instagram, I'm that baddest bee, stuff like that. They don't like competition. If 80% of women's going up to 10, 20%, your competition is fierce. What
Right.
you want, you're not going to get, because a woman better than you is giving it to them already. They're just going to, use your resource and just put you aside.
Right. Certainly.
And they don't want to understand. They want to be that exception, that they use the resource and they got the guy. No, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And then when you create a conversation with a person about, what you're doing, what you did, you become disingenuous.
Correct.
And if that is no big deal to you that you did that and you feel, why are you disingenuous when you talk to the next person about your experiences, your past experiences, stuff like that, to make a framework for them? Because half the time their disingenuous nature is what causes conflict, when they find out later on. And then they try to sweep it under the rug. But that's a different topic. But it leads into that, because you are looking for the next 10, 20%. And some of them, they run in the same circle. So if they know you, yeah, you're already known regardless of what you say. And then we don't realize that either.
Right.
But women, they just, like I said, they look for the end result. They look to be the exception, and they'll be damned if they're not anything else.
Yeah. And then the reality of that is you don't understand the reality of that. Is like, that's a real number. So you have these guys out here, for example, at a workplace, that when a new woman comes into town, they're like trying that next woman. So it's like they were with that woman, and then now they want the next woman. And it's really, when you think about it, how do you meet someone? And there's a general way. It's just like, for example, when the woman came up to me about the cologne. So you got to understand the motives and the intentions of people that meet you. Why is this guy meeting you? What does he want from you? It's not to say you can't engage someone, but you should use a little wisdom and use a little a little discernment when someone comes up to you. What are they saying to you? Are they saying all the right things? And that's, again, we talk about that. People who are pandering. You have these guys out here, these guys that are that 10 to 20%. Listen, if a guy's just looking to you to be next and X, they're gonna talk to you the same way that the last guy that did that to you did. It's not gonna be, they're gonna use the same game. A lot of times they're gonna use these slick words. They're gonna ask you to go out. They're gonna just be very, very, very poetic. A lot of these guys are very poetic in the way that they approach women. So you got to know when the game is being put on you. If not, yeah, you're going to be in that situation. And when you're looking for those 10 to 20% of the guys, that's going to happen more times than not. There's going to, a lot of women who deal with those kind of guys, they end up in the same situation over and over again. So yeah, that's the thing. And then how it usually happens is it takes a lot of time for them to get to the point where they really have meted out what they want out of a relationship. And then even then, there's no social component to it. It's like, if you come and talk to me, I'll entertain you at that point, but it's like not a social, like I'm available. So let me allow myself to appear available in a conversation. And that's really how you do it. When you meet someone, how they know that you're interested is your availability. If you're willing to be around this person, if you're willing to talk to this person, that's how someone knew that you were interested in them. Now it's just, oh, you got to do some over the top things. Even when they're interested, they want you to do extra things. And
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. I'm not the only time that we meet up is we eating out thing. I'm not okay with that. The only time you contact me when it's time to eat out, when you go get something to eat or do something.
Yeah, and guys, you got to look out for that too, because some women would
Yes.
not be interested, and and I had that happen to me before. I had this woman I was interested in many years ago. Yeah, she used to work with me, and then she left, and she was like, "Well, I don't talk to guys that I work with." So I was like, "Okay." And then she left, and she was like, "Okay, I'll talk to you." But the problem was she wasn't really interested in me because there was never any progression in this dating. We just went out on dates. There was just no intimacy. There was just no increase of interest. She was like, "Oh, let's go out to lunch." And I was taking her to this restaurant, to that restaurant. So after a couple of times, at that time I was just really not trying to be suspicious at all. And I said, you know what, let me put the test out there. So I put the test. I said, we're going to all these fancy places, trendy spots. I said, let me see how this woman really rolls. And so I asked her to go to sit down for coffee. I'm like, listen, I've come to realize that a lot of times we go out and we go to places we can't really talk. When we go to these trendy spots, if you go to any spot that's trendy, what's the common denominator in these places? Do you know, Jim?
It's expensive and anybody named mama's there.
No, where you can't
Oh,
talk to someone. Why can't you talk to someone in the restaurant?
oh, well, for me, it's background noise.
Background noise, which is usually music.
Yeah,
Trendy spots tend to play music that people like to hear. I mean, that's just how it usually happens. So you go somewhere, the music is very loud. You can't really have a discussion on top of the music that's loud. So I was like, we're going to these places, the music is loud and it's very hard to talk. So I was like, let's go sit down and have coffee because I want to ask you some questions. And, I wanted to have the serious conversation. What's up with this? We've been doing this a few times already. I don't see this going anywhere. So I wanted to know what was up. I hear you say little slick things, but just enough for us to go back out again. So she was like, okay. But of course, she was, gaming me. So she said initially, she said, okay. And then she came back and then she was like, oh, my friend suggested this spot. And I was like, is this a coffee house? She was like, no, I said, well, that's a problem because I told you the problem with going to trendy spots is very hard to communicate in these places. And I want to sit down and have a conversation with you. So I was like, if we can't go to a place where it's simple, where we can sit down and talk. I said, I'm not really interested, a diner or something like that. So that was pretty much the end of it. But the funny thing with this conversation was that she thought she was going to make me upset. And so she sends me a text message pretending to send it to another guy, but she's sending it to me. So she's in the message, she says, oh, my plans for Friday, they change. And it's anywhere I really wanted to go out with you anyway, so it worked out. And so I laughed. I was like, "Oh, you yeah, your text message, you send it to me by accident." And then I laughed. I knew she didn't send it to me by accident, but I didn't care because at that point I'm like, if someone doesn't want to be with you, why get torn up over that? You really just gotta just take your losses and move on. I just can't be obsessed with people who are not. I did that as a teenager. You just falling down over people who are not interested in you.
Yes.
It's just a
And
waste.
anything they upset when you do that, when you have something else. So, if you cancel plans, you're like, okay, well, I have something else I can do anyway. They get offended because, oh wait, yeah, an alternative just in case I cancel. Like, yeah, I'm not going to base my whole day based around what you want to do. No. And you know me very well. I could do multiple things in one day. And I do that. And if one plan is canceled, I have something else lined up already to take that spot.
Yeah. So you know, it's the issue here again is intention. You got to understand the intention of people when you meet them.
Hmm.
Guys, if someone is stringing you along for a lot of dates and there's no progression in where you're going with this person, my best advice to you is just leave it alone. Be upfront and be upfront of what you're looking for. And that's a problem because of
Yes,
lack of socializing between men and women. People are
correct.
not upfront with what they want. So if you're looking for a relationship, be upfront with it. Say, I'm looking for a relationship. I'm interested in you. Are you interested in me also? And if someone says yes, if all you're doing with this person is going out to eat, forget it because you're friend zone and you just don't realize it.
Right.
Even if they say they like you, if the relationship is not progressing to a point where you can see movement from the first date, if you've gone on 3 dates and you've seen no change in your relationship with this person, forget it and
Yes.
take the hint. Take the hint.
Hmm.
So yeah, you got to take that hint. Got to move on. Don't waste your time because what happens is you'll find yourself lots of money in the hole and nothing to show for it other than the fact that you just gain some weight eating these calories. So like again, you gotta discern intention. It's in the intent of what the person is doing with you. If a guy just wants to sleep with a woman, you gotta discern that. I mean,
Yes.
don't fall for the syrupy stuff that he's giving to everybody else. You kind of know who these guys are. You kind of know them because you tend to like them more than the rest of the guys. Women, the guy that they should be with, they tend to have to know over time. And the ones that they initially want to be with, those are the guys that, everybody wants those guys. And I
Hmm.
mean, you got to just be fair with yourself like that. If you're just, wow, that guy right there, I want to be with him. I mean, not that anyone really says that, but if you're saying that in your mind, you were so excited to be with this guy, trust me, there's a lot of people, a lot of other ladies that feel the same way that you do. If you're, and because the real guy that you want to be with, well, I don't want to say that you want to be with, that would really value you, you have to get to know that guy because those
Hmm.
guys usually you don't usually meet them just straight up and you're like, okay, boom, here it is. The relationship is this is a guy that has to earn the relationship. Most of those guys is going to just use you up and spit you out. Those are the guys that you get involved with relatively quickly. The guy, the real relationship that you should be in, those are the ones that got to put in work for whatever reason. Not to say that I agree with that, but that's usually what happens. And ladies, that's true because how many of you are dated a few guys before you found the one? Most women have not met the one when they dated the first guy. So that I'm saying that's true. You went with some guys that were not good for you straight up. That's most women. Some women they got lucky and met their person in high school or junior high school or elementary and they've been with them all the years, but that doesn't happen normally. So, you got to know who you are. And that was the next point that I wanted to make is the expectations of qualifications for somebody you want to be with. And I think there's a disconnect there. And so you have men have different qualities they look for in a woman than Women do, and it depends on the economy, right? So if a man's economy is great, then he requires very specific things from a woman. If he's good with his money and he has lots of it, or he can live comfortably, he's looking for someone who's attractive, who is loyal to him, who's in good shape, and can get along with. That's just plain and simple. Why is it that way? Is because those are long-term things. And then once you get past those initial qualities, then you have things like they can hold a conversation with you, because there's nothing worse than you liking to converse with someone and they don't have anything to say back and they just only listen to what you say. Those are very simple characteristics that most men, whether they're in the good category in terms of long-term husband type, or if they're in the just going to run you around, then they don't really care too much about the conversation. I mean, they do after the fact, but then if you don't have it, they usually drop you. I mean, a guy, that regular guy, he'll try to work with you until it can't work anymore. But those 10 to 20% of the guys that gets all the women, they're probably going to ghost you after they start having sex with you because there's no interest there. So that's on the men's side. On the women's side, where that's where the issue comes, because there's a lot of expectations with women. So often it is the looks, the height, not to cheat. They want loyalty too. They want the man mostly, unless they have the fetish, they want them to be in shape. Mm-hmm. They want the man to have an education if possible. Not saying that that isn't accepted, but the most important thing is the income. And if they don't have the income, they have to have the ambition to improve the income. Mm-hmm. And then more defined in that conversation is good in bed, and usually some type of endowment in the bed situation. So those things are very complicated, because when you match those things to men, you have the women have to figure out where they're going to compromise. And it's very hard for a lot of women to compromise because they want all of those things. And I literally know people right now that are single because they can't find these characteristics in one guy. So they'll give a guy a shot and then it doesn't work out because he doesn't have B, C, D, E, G, and F, G, H, I, and J. And they're still single. And I won't put their names out on Front Street, but I'll just let you know it's a real thing. There are people out there looking for Mr. Goodbar, but they're finding the dollar chocolates that the Catholic schools like to sell. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so you have that situation of expectation that often can be unrealistic, unfortunately, on the women's side. You know, men have kind of understood that what they need to do to become. Now you have some men, they'll enterprise and they'll try to fight above their their weight class. Yes. But the average guy knows they're not getting there. You know, yes. They know that they're not getting that high value woman, that 8s, 9s, and 10s. A lot of these guys know that, so they navigate. Most guys, if they want those kind of women, they'll up their income. Like my man, the African dude who had Autumn Spikes, he was a billionaire, and you know, he bags. I mean, she looked better before she did all that stuff to her, but originally, you know, she was an attractive young lady. So people understand you got banked, that, and the guy's not attractive at all. I don't care, you know, not according to those photos. So I don't, you know, so a lot of men understand this dynamic. They can get attractive women if they're rich and successful. Not to say that these are women that they should be with, because a lot of them just want the money. And as long as they have the money, they're along for the ride. But a lot of these guys don't care, because these women that they're looking for are irreplaceable. And then if they wanted someone like that, well, they can find some agreeable woman who, I mean, they could be decent in their lives and not be just totally out for the money, but enjoy the money and give value back to the man because they enjoy the money. So that's how it works a lot of times. You'll have plenty of women out there that are trained to, look for guys that have money, but they also understand that it entails being a housewife. What do you say to that, Jim? Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're right about that part with the money part. Some women have lost the idea that the man with money, and they go up to them with nothing, and they expect the money and give nothing. There has to be, women have to understand that type of understanding or agreement, within themselves, that you going for a guy with money, you need to step it up. Your game has to be, on point. The same thing that women require of men, even though women right now are trying to surpass their class and go for men who are high above, because I've seen postings of women, a high value person will not take a look at, but they acting like, since they're a woman, just a woman, and they could just bring sex to the table, that they should get a high value man. And it doesn't work like that. We as men is a little bit more astute to the requirements. Yeah, some guy will probably try to go out there class a bit. It's funny. They do it as a test. Stuff like that. But the end result is they're not disappointed when it doesn't happen compared
Right.
to women.
Right.
And that's what they have to understand. I see all these posts about women saying he mad, he did that. No, he's not. He's just doing that for show. It's just a dog and pony show. You have to realize you're part of the show. But aside from that, it is, men have a better understanding of cues for relationships when they are above or below their own class and what they expect. Um, with women, I it's at some point, Jonathan, I really want to say this. Most women probably have met their Mr. Right or Mr. Suitable. It's just they friend zoned them. By the time they realize that he's going on, he's moved
Right.
on.
Don't go too far into that, because that's going to
Okay,
be the next topic. I don't want to go beyond that. So, yeah.
gotcha.
So
All right.
so
So
go ahead.
with that, women, some women have to, accept certain cues, even though they're being fed all this, you can have it all, don't do nothing. They have to understand the cues. And this is where chat rooms and stuff like that has made it so lower and discernible. Social media is because they don't have the cues anymore. So the social cues to see, what men are looking for, what to look out for, how to do certain things, how to adapt. There is no adaptability. It's just that they want that one thing. They they use a blunt object to force it onto people. And that art, like I said, our conversation art of looking out for social cues in society is gone. People
Yeah.
don't pick up on social cues anymore. It's hard to say that. Then with men now, anything in context of what they do could be scrutinized and say it's harassment, it's this, is that. Men just want peace, man.
Yeah.
If you go
So
off with them, peace.
that I wanted to go into this next portion of the situation, and that's also the confusion into when how does this work out. So you have a lot of women who, I would say, I noticed this happened in the 90s. They've been told to push off relationships. So here's the thing. So you can meet someone 18, 19, 20s, and you like them, and it's have fun. Don't take relationships seriously. They tell that to the ladies all the time. I think that's bad advice, because here's the
Mhm.
thing. You do that, and a lot of these women, so they go to college, they date around. Yeah, I don't want to say date around like it is a million guys, but they date this guy, they may date that guy, they might have a relationship here, relationship there, but not enough to be like, this is going to be somebody I want to be with. They're not looking for guys to be married to or engaged, at least not initially. And that's the problem, because what happens is when you're young and you're looking to have fun, so sometimes what happens is they'll meet these guys that want to have fun too. But here's the thing. You're connecting to a guy that is not moving in the direction that you eventually want to move in. So you can have this guy around you because you like him and he's fun, but ultimately his goal is just a temporary relationship with you because he's not looking to settle down, but you're attracted to that guy. So already you have started off wrong because your parents have told you, or some adult or some friends have told you, no, 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 don't take this guy seriously. Don't settle because you got to get your education, you got to get your career. And here's the thing is, you're getting an education. So think about this. When you get going for your education, what else do you do with your life? Do you just go to school? Because I see people doing these few things. Some people join sororities, student government, work study, internship. So you do all these things. So why is a relation? If you want to have a future in a relationship, why is that not important? So people tell you to leave that last. But here's the thing. If I meet you at 18 years old, right? It's like, for example, so you have a car that I want to buy from you. So let's say you have a 2022 Mercedes Benz. Let's just say Maybach version, right? Oh, I love that Mercedes Benz. How much are you willing to sell it for? You're like, oh, you know what? I'm thinking about selling it for $100,000. Okay. So, okay, let me get my $100,000. But you say, you know what? I'm not going to sell it right now. I'm not going to sell the Mercedes now. I'll sell it to you in about 5 or 10 years. Okay. So here's what happens. So the person drives the car, gets, I don't know, for anybody who drives cars, you can get 100,000 miles in no time. That, depending where you live, 100,000 miles is like Thanos, like that. And you're at 100,000 miles. It doesn't take, in this day and age, how people travel, it doesn't take long for people to get 100,000. So okay, within a couple of years, you've gotten about 100,000 miles on your car. Certain things don't work. You have to repair them. Maybe you have some body damage, just some dents, some rust on the side of the car. So now here's 5 years later, you done use this car up. And the car doesn't look as new as it did in 2021 when you had a 2022 model. So the guy's like, okay, you want to buy this car now? Sure. How much you selling it for? Because the car isn't not, it's still running, so okay. $100,000. What? You want me to pay the same price that you bought the car new for? Nobody does that, right? No one does that. And that's really what happens in relationships. So a lot of these women, they expect the guy to have the same interest all these years later after they've aged, after they've had relationships and the personalities have changed for the better or the worse. And then they're like, I'm ready for a relationship now. But they want you to have the same interest that you should have had, that you had for them when they were fresh and clean. And that's usually, not many men work that way. And not to say there aren't any. You might find Bill Gates might be interested in you, but you're not going to find a lot of guys that are going to just fall into these terms. And women, I'm going to be honest with you. If you meet a guy and they're acting like you're just as fresh as you were when you're 19 years old, probably that guy you want to take advantage of you. I'm going to be honest with you, because it's not the same. If a dude is song and dancing you 10, 15, you met him and you're like 35 now, you knew him at 15 and he's telling you he liked you the same way he liked you at 15. Listen, you better call Spotify, because he's giving you a song right there. I'm being honest.
Yeah,
It's not to say people are not interested, but trust me, when somebody's trying hard, it's just usually they just want to get that victory. I know a lot of guys, they do that. They're searching for the ones that got away to get that victory, to say, I finally got that one. And it's happened. I know countless amount of women who fell for the hook, line, sinker, banana in the tailpipe, where the guy came around and he was, oh yeah, I've always wanted to be with you, and oh man, I love you, and they get the they smack in the butt, And then what do you have to show for it? Really? They just smacking the butt to smack the butt, but they're not offering you any stability. They're not offering you stability at all. And that's what happens in the end. So, I mean, do you agree, Jim? I mean,
Yes, I definitely do agree. The type of energy that was there before, it does dissipate over time. New interests does happen, things like that. Life circumstances do affect how you feel about a next person, and we know it's beyond our control. So, you know, yeah, I don't understand it. Like the whole not have pushing off a relationship is that you can have a relationship while you're doing your studies and things like what's the difference in
right,
pushing it off? If you push it off, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing in substitute of that?
right,
You're still like what you say, you still join sororities, you're still looking for a connection or closeness to that experience that you've had, that you're having. And having a relationship is not going to change anything. What, they think you're going to leave school because you have a relationship, but you could leave school for very other reasons besides that. I mean, what are you controlling or trying to say by not having a relationship in college, or it just makes you affirm what you are looking for. And somebody that you start out with, that you're advancing with, going up with, seeing where your priorities are, things like that. What are your plans for the future? Because you are trying to have a future with this person. So I don't understand that whole entire concept or idea that you're young, have fun. What's fun? Like, you know, and then second for what you just said, you know, the experience factor when you meet somebody at 18, they're not the same person you meet at 25, mentally and physically. I'm sorry to say, you're not. Especially, and I don't want to be a bad guy, especially if you have a child.
right.
That is a very, very high deciding factor. And most men,
Or
when
children,
yes, children.
because
I said
sometimes
child.
it's more than one from more than one.
Yes. So if women, I mean, you know what? Yes, a guy should love you unconditionally. If you feel that, but if you have a child, it does
Well, I'm
negatively.
I'm I'm going to stop you there and interrupt you because there's no such thing as It's very
I know
rare
it's
that
very
is,
rare, but
because if there was a such thing as unconditional love, most people will not be divorced.
but I understand that, but these women trying to hammer that home, and they're
Yeah,
not. They still think it's there. So let's
yeah.
leave it at that for now. That's a topic for another discussion.
Unconditional love is near
Yes,
impossible to, not to say it doesn't exist, but unconditional love is like Forrest Gump was in love with Jenny. That's
yes,
unconditional
that's
love,
yes,
because she put him through the ringer and he was
yes,
still there. But think about it. Think about how they had to portray Forrest Gump in the movie, that he was mentally he had a mental disability where it
mm-hmm,
caused him not to be like the average person.
mm-hmm,
So in that way, they were like, this is the portrayal of somebody who would love someone unconditionally, because they
mm-hmm,
couldn't portray a regular person that would go through all that and still be there after all those years, so
mm-hmm.
devoted. It's very hard to achieve. Not to say that it can't happen, but it's very rare. Somebody has to be tip top shape at the top of their game, and that's not a lot of people. That's just like when we talk about these 10 to 20% of guys that are with 80% of the women. It's like that. So to
Right.
find unconditional love, not to say it's impossible, but it's improbable,
Very
because
probable.
a
Yes.
lot of people have conditions on their love. Trust me,
Right.
trust
Right.
me. I can speak better to that than anyone.
Yeah.
Is you gotta, if you don't achieve these standards, then there's no love. And they'll
Yeah.
say I love you, but I don't love you.
Yeah.
So
Yo,
you got to think unconditional love is very hard to get. It is. It's like getting 3 doctorates. Who gets 3 doctorates in a lifetime? No, not many people. Many people, most people that if you get a bachelor's and a master's and 2 masters, but you don't have anybody that's getting 3 master's degrees. I mean, 3 doctorates. It's people are not putting themselves through that. So
oh,
it's
for
like
me,
that. So
yeah. So,
yeah, I wanted to bring that up, but I also wanted to talk about some of the, going back to the topic of this time, and what women tend to perceive makes them a desirable woman. And so we have education, money, worldly items like a house, a car, that they're independent, and they are experienced because they use their age to say, well, I have experience. So, not to say that the experience can't matter, but here's the thing: who does these things matter to? They don't matter to the 10 to 20% guys. So if you're looking for a guy that's in that 10 to 20% of getting all the women, which is not really many men. So you're talking about 1 to 2 guys out of every 10. And it's not going to be very, because those things don't matter to people who have money.
Yep.
If you have $100,000 and this guy's making $100,000 or $200,000, the money doesn't matter to him. It matters to you. Men have money for women. They don't have money for themselves. We've talked about this before. Men make money to attract women. They do. Because a lot of guys out there, they don't mind living in a room somewhere, paying a room rate, $125 a week, or $150 a week. That's a steal. If you could live in a room somewhere and do whatever you have to do in life, many guys are happy. I used to live in a room myself. I paid $75 a week to live in a room. I was happy. Trust me, if I could have lived in that room for the rest of my life, I probably would have. But guess what? Women don't want a guy that lives in a rents a room for $75 a week. It doesn't happen. I mean, I took dates there, but come on. How long you think that was going to last? If you think I was going to have a girlfriend and a wife, you think we were going to live in a room? I mean, people do it, but those are usually from third world countries where they come and living in a room is a step up from where they came from. But people who want more for themselves, they want more than a room. So guys got to have money for the ladies. They want the ladies, and they're going to make the money to attract the ladies because they know women are attracted to success. So if they're successful, the money is going to be a big deal. So if they have money and you have money, it matters not. Money is how much you make is only going to matter to someone who is not financially stable, who may not have money to achieve the things that they can in a relationship. So the less somebody has money, the more it's going to matter to a person. So you're probably going to be disqualified from somebody who makes a lot of money because that's the dynamics of it. Jim, are you there? Okay. Maybe he's not there. So anyway, the next topic.
I'm here.
Yeah. All right. So did you hear what I said?
Yes, you're absolutely correct with that. Men do not value money in a relationship as women do. What you said, if having a whole lot of money wasn't a requirement, men would not be doing what they're doing now to obtain, a whole lot of money and stuff like that. Men have simple needs, it's not as complex as, some people make it out to be. And like I said, the money is for an attraction to, I want to say it's a mating ritual, but, it's part of, to get a woman that, they desire. It's like you said, I never lived in a room, but I will have no problems. Men are highly adaptable and, they just do things, what they need to survive. And it's not really a big requirement.
Right. But look at it this way. Look at how many men, I mean, not to belittle homelessness, but look how many men live on the street and can handle that. So you think the simplicity of life is you have guys that can live on the street and be okay with it, excluding mental disease. Not to
Correct.
say someone wants to be homeless, but like you said, adapting to the lifestyle. So it's like I'll roll with the punches and do what I can. So this money and this success is just it's a draw for attractive women.
Yes.
So we have to understand that for those reasons. And I think what it is people don't understand that, and they misconceive what women have in terms of uh, you know, wealth, wealth means nothing. It doesn't, because unless you got a guy that's just gonna just live off of you.
But they don't want guys like that either. But that's the only guys that they will attract. That's the problem. They don't see the disconnect. They don't see that type of ideology there. And I'm a high value woman. I got a PhD. I got this. I got that. Why can't I find a high value man? High value man is equipped already. You want a person who is already equipped for all that stuff that you have already. And when you do that, it's going to clash, because what do they actually need you for? The stuff that you don't do. Cook, clean, do stuff all like that. When you are a ready-made person, this is what men don't want: a ready-made family. They don't want ready-made stuff. They don't. And that's what women really have to understand. We like to build, like what Kevin said, and I don't want to say like that type of misogynist, but men are actually builders. Men like to use their hands. I'm a geek, but I do like to use my hands. I could cut things, destroy things, put things together. That's basically what we do. And then we're not, when we're denied that opportunity or even stuff to do that, most men don't feel right. They don't. They feel out of whack.
Right. So
And
yeah, let me continue on, because we almost running out of time here. I don't want to
oh Lord.
go
Okay, go ahead.
over, because we're already close to the edge here. So I wanted to go back to the time. Timing is everything, because how people see you is now, what is the guy going to look like? What's the age of the person going to look like? So, working these things out, that's for average people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to, so here's the thing: the average guy, like a guy like myself, I'm an average guy. So the average guy like myself, Jim is an average guy. We're average guys. Donnie's an average guy. We're average guys. We're not Jeff Bezos or anybody like that. We're earning a living. Donnie's in school. He's getting an education. So we're these average guys. Okay, so you have to work with us. We have to work with you, because we're not buying $500,000 homes on our own. Mm-hmm. We're not buying Benzes on our own. So we're the guys that you got to look at. We're the kind of guys, because we're going to work with you. We're going to understand what you're bringing and not be so superficial in how you got to look in your experiences. A person like myself may say, okay, you got a couple of kids, no problem. I got kids too, right? So that's what you got to talk about. But also, you got to realize that time comes with a price. The longer you wait, and the whole purpose that I brought this up is we're talking about, and not to say that this woman is not attractive, but I wanted to show this. So here's Lisa Bonet. So on the left side is Lisa Bonet and her heyday, and the photo on the right is Lisa Bonet now. So if you didn't know Lisa Bonet from then to now, because a lot of guys, they're going to talk to Lisa Bonet because she's a celebrity. Let's be honest, celebrity, it sort of attracts people that everyday people can't attract. So not to say that Lisa Bonet is not attractive. She's still beautiful, but that's a different kind of beautiful. That's a woman in her 50s beautiful. But Lisa Bonet, when she was a different world, she was, looked differently than now. So that goes to the Mercedes-Benz analogy, where if you wanted to sell your soul to be with someone, you're going to sell your soul to be with young Lisa Bonet. You're not going to sell your soul for Lisa Bonet in 2021. That's what people have to understand. And a lot of women don't. They want guys to bark like a dog, bark like a big dog, and hop on one foot like Imani Aziz and Coming to America. But the reality is, why would someone do that? And if somebody's doing that, I would be very suspicious. The same analogy that I use with the girl with the cologne, ladies. If a guy is jumping over hoops jumping through hoops, I should say, to be with you at this time in, at Lisa Bonet 2022, I would be very suspicious of that guy because, give him a Sprite because he's being thirsty. So you gotta again, you gotta discern the intentions. So if you don't discern it, you're gonna be asking why I can't find somebody. That's really what it boils down to. So with all of this, tying it back is really how to work things out in the beginning, now, today. Don't wait 10, 15 more years because you may not have it. Tomorrow's not promised to anyone. So the purpose of this conversation is become more sociable. Become more social. Learn how to talk with your fellow man and woman. Have conversations. You don't necessarily have to date everyone that approaches you, but know how to engage people, because when the right man or the right woman comes around, you want to be able to know how to talk to that person. So that's really what I wanted to say all about that. Jim, I'll let you get your close out and then we'll close out.
Okay, thank you. Rediscover the art of conversation, face to face. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but it's not that hard. You start with your interests, then you start with stuff you don't like, and then you continue on. You keep being engaged. Please don't try to keep it to one topic or one self-centered type of ideology. Keep it interesting. It doesn't take much to keep a person's attention, as long as you try to be engaging. Do not be these things are not one-offs. And please don't be dismissive, for goodness sakes. That's the worst part. Always be polite, even if you don't like something. Being dismissive shows that you're just plainly just rude. Just it's always there's room for civility, cordial, and stand upon ceremony. There's always room for that. And just learn how to do it. Don't act like everything has to be behind a keyboard or a thumb pad or a camera. That's all.
Right. Those are good words there. I just wanted to say, finally, put down the social media. Talk to people. Say good morning. Say have a good evening. Have a good weekend. Talk about things. Get to know people. You'd be surprised how many people don't know you, how many people you don't know. It's important that you really take time out, because what you invest in now will come back to you. Reap what you sow, or you sow what you reap, or whatever. My brain is not working right now. But as you sow, so shall you reap. There you go.
Correct. That's what it is.
There you go. I got it, guys. With that being said, thank you for listening to The Truth is Still Straight. Once again, this is Jonathan St. James. And on the other side of the view, not the view on ABC, the view on The Truth is Still Straight. And that's Jim. Have a good day.
Take care, everyone.